On the 23rd of June 2018, kids were playing at a club, a youth soccer team, with ages between 11 and 16 years old, along with their coach and assistant coach. The training was as usual, and everything was fine. After they finished, the coach said goodbye to the players and prepared himself to train the older team, putting his phone aside. After a few hours, when he finished training the older group, he grabbed his phone and found a scary amount of calls from the families of the kids who went to the earlier training session. The kids hadn't returned home even though a long time had passed. The coach started calling the kids one by one, but not a single one of them answered. Not even the assistant coach answered his phone. They were all out of coverage. Finally, one of the kids answered his phone, Sampong, one of the team players, 13 years old. He answered the phone and was at home because his mother came and picked him up from training. But he told the coach that the rest of the kids got on their bikes and went to Tham Luang Cave. They had agreed to go there to explore the caves with the assistant coach. The coach went crazy. He immediately started his car and went to the caves. When he arrived there, he saw something terrifying at the cave entrance. The kids' bikes were there, meaning the team was still inside. The problem was that the amount of water entering through the cave entrance was frightening. Heavy rains had started falling as soon as the kids entered the cave, meaning if the kids were still alive, they were trapped inside and couldn't get out. The police came and saw the kids' bags and other things belonging to them left behind. They also saw that regardless of the cave entrance that was rapidly filling with water in a scary way, it was impossible for them to go inside and search for them because the water level had risen and no one could enter. Today I want to tell you the story of the most dangerous rescue operation in the world. A crisis management team was formed to manage the children's rescue operation. Even though all the police and security forces filled the place, they also needed divers from the Thai Navy because diving in a cave is nothing like regular diving. There was a British man living in Thailand who went to the disaster site and offered his services. He told them, "I want to help you." Vern Unsworth, a man with experience in caves who lived in this area and understood the Tham Luang cave system exactly because he was the one who discovered this cave and mapped it years ago. He said this cave was the fourth longest cave in Thailand, and after 1 kilometer from the entrance there's a fork with 2 directions. The fork extends for 10 kilometers, and if the kids were alive, they might find them in that direction, in a somewhat distant area. Honestly, his presence there was very important because he also contacted the British Cave Rescue Council and spoke with 2 divers he knew well, named John Valanthan and Rick Stanton, and told them, "It's essential that you travel and come here to Thailand, because the situation we're facing is very difficult." John and Rick were longtime friends and diving companions with great trust between them, and they understood each other well underwater. They had dived together many times and had many experiences rescuing people and recovering bodies from underwater. A large number of experts in these situations came to the place, but everyone was afraid it was already too late to save them, and there was no need for anyone to dive and exhaust themselves because throughout all the time that passed, the rain was still falling heavily, and the Navy divers couldn't dive further and reach a deeper place inside the cave. When the British divers arrived, all the people had lost hope, and everyone was looking at them like, what are these old men going to do if the young divers working in the Navy couldn't do anything? What can these older men do? When they asked one of them about this, he told them, "With all respect to the Navy and the divers in it, and I don't doubt their abilities, but believe me, diving anywhere in the world is one thing, and diving in a cave is another, and we have experience in this because we've done it many times before." John actually works as a consultant for an IT company, but for him, diving is a passion and hobby, and he loves this very much. Rick is originally a firefighter. Let me tell you that these 2 didn't have athletic or military skills, but they had experience that was very useful in such situations. They had the required skills and expertise in a situation that needs people who know how to dive in caves and swim in its passages. Anyway, Rick and John went down into the cave and started walking slowly, placing markers in every place they passed through. Swimming at the first place from the moment they descended required special skills because they would swim against the water current. After Rick and John went down and placed markers in the places they were walking through to make it easier for the rest of the divers to do the same and walk behind them, the goal they wanted to reach was a place inside the cave called Pattaya Beach. As they say, It's a chamber inside the cave, but at a high level with protection from floods. So this might be the place the kids escaped to. But before they got there, John and Rick stopped at a certain point and couldn't go further. The rain wasn't stopping, and the water currents were very strong. They reached a place where they had a feeling of fear, and as they say, they felt it was impossible for the kids to still be alive. The volunteers outside with the Navy divers were working around the clock to do anything to lower the water level inside the cave. A number of people also joined them to help, and one of these people was named Saman Kunan, a former Navy soldier and skilled diver who came to help them. When Saman came, he helped the Navy divers with something important. As they say, they had divided the cave from inside into several stages and made in the third stage a camp. This area was large and had a big part not submerged in water, and they made it like a station close to the place they wanted to reach. They put equipment and air tanks and everything the divers needed there. At the same time, everyone outside was working to divert the water streams pouring into the cave and find new places to put pumps and pull the water out. With all this enthusiasm and everyone's efforts to reduce the water level inside, and there was a slight improvement in the weather conditions, the British divers returned to try again. This time they made the longest dive distance in the cave. The goal was Pattaya Beach, which they finally reached after this long and exhausting distance. They finally got there and surfaced to the top of the area in it, but there was no sign showing the kids were there. After this point, they couldn't continue diving in a correct and studied way because the rule they were following was to use a third of the air they had with them to reach the place, keep a second third for the return trip, and the last third had to remain for emergencies because the place they were diving in was a cave, dark, and they were exposed to anything happening at any time. So they always had to have backup air. They were already exceeding this rule and risking their lives a bit, but they decided not to give up and advance further to a more distant place, putting guide wires behind them all the time. They kept advancing until they walked double the distance they were supposed to cover at first to Pattaya Beach. They reached a place where they surfaced to the water surface, and then they saw light. John was swimming toward the light and started hearing voices, so he immediately turned on the camera. The famous moment when they found the boys? As much as the whole world was happy and excited that they found the kids, the people participating in the rescue operation knew that the mission of finding the kids was the easy part, because not a single one of them knew how they could get them out of the cave. There was a solution, which was to teach the kids how to dive. Maybe they could train for a short time on diving with instructors in the cave until they became ready to dive for long distances. The second solution was to drill vertically through the rock from above the cave, like the mine workers' rescue operation that happened in Chile in 2010. The last solution was simply for them to wait until the rainy season ended, the water level dropped, and they could exit the way they entered. Throughout the time they were trapped, they would continue to supply them with food and drink. As you can see, and all the people who were outside the cave could see, there were options to choose from for how to get the kids out. The British divers on the ground knew that none of these solutions was logical. Teaching the kids to dive in such conditions was impossible. There were some among the kids who didn't know how to swim. They were tired and exhausted because they had been inside the cave for a long time and weren't sleeping well. Diving through cave passages is nothing like regular diving. The moment you pass through a tight place and have a panic attack, or what they call it, it means you die. Drilling vertically from above the cave was also unrealistic, because in the case of the mine workers in Chile, the drilling took them 7 weeks before they could get them out, and the situation here in this cave was much worse than there. The distance they would drill was more than 1 kilometer, and there were rocks very difficult to drill through, if not impossible. Besides that, it was very difficult for them to accurately determine the kids' location from above and drill directly above them. The last solution was also doomed to failure, because the oxygen level in the chamber was already reaching a dangerous level, and they couldn't stay there for a long time. This was still the beginning of the rains, which would continue for 4 months. You're talking about the team having to wait there for 4 months, and the rain would keep falling and increasing throughout this entire period, and the water level might reach them while they're sitting there. The rescuers had no solutions. On top of all this talk, suddenly bad news came out that crushed everyone's morale. Saman Kunan died. This was a huge loss for this man, and a reminder of how dangerous the operation they were doing was. With no realistic idea to rescue the children, suddenly a crazy idea was mentioned. What if we sedated the kids and then transported them while they were unconscious? Rick contacted one of his old acquaintances, Dr. Richard Harris, an anesthesiologist from Australia with more than 30 years of experience diving in caves. Harris from the beginning was clear with him and told him he was against the idea and that sedating the kids like this literally put the kids' lives in the divers' hands. Could they really carry them through tight passages? They moved the kids on stretchers and got them to the second stage of diving. Of course, the anesthetic they were giving the kids wasn't enough for the entire duration of the journey, and the diver had to give the kid with him a new dose during the journey, which is why they were equipped with a needle to take with them before moving. I don't understand where they got their nerves from. Imagine someone in a situation like this with a kid and having to give him an injection on the way. Of course, the matter wasn't easy for the divers, who were very afraid for the kids' lives. But when they got the first two kids out and got them to the area they had made as storage and put equipment in halfway, their confidence increased. It was confirmed then that this crazy plan was actually successful and brought results. After this area in the middle, Navy soldiers and a legendary number of volunteers were making a legendary effort, drying the area well from water. They moved the kids on stretchers and walked with them through the cave's rocky terrain. On the first day, 4 kids were successfully rescued. On the day after, another 4 were rescued. On the third and final day, the plan was to rescue the last 4 and the assistant coach. But although everything was going fine, suddenly something didn't work out with them. The last kid, who was the smallest one among them, the special mask they used for everyone, which, as we said, without it things wouldn't work, didn't fit on his face. The mask was bigger than his face, and in every way they tried to secure it well, but it kept slipping off. Here the divers were forced to try putting on him a very small mask, designated for children, that they had brought just in case, hoping they wouldn't need it. This mask was actually designated for recreational use, and didn't work for such situations. Even this mask barely fit on his face, and still kept slipping off. The divers had no solution but to try to secure it for him, and tie it for him very tightly and take the risk. This rescue operation was difficult to its last moment. Everything they were afraid of and hoped wouldn't happen to them happened. But now everything is over, and the operation was successfully completed. All the kids and the assistant coach were rescued. This success was unexpected by anyone, not the people, not the kids' families, not even the divers. Although this success was great happiness for the whole world, nothing comes without a price, because one of the Navy members got a blood infection during the rescue operation. Beirut Pakbara, a Navy officer and a young man, kept having health problems after the rescue operation. And unfortunately, after a year he died. Thus Beirut and Saman, 2 from the Navy, sacrificed their lives to save these kids. I hope you liked the story. If you liked the video, I hope you'll support it with a like.